Hey y'all, welcome to week 9 of your first year of drum lessons. My name is Penny Larson and I am happy to have you with me today. If this is your first time joining us, this is going to be our drum pad / music theory portion of our lesson. On Friday we'll have our drum set portion. As I mentioned, this is week 9. So if this is your first time joining me, please feel free to go back and start from the beginning and you'll be caught up and this won't be new to you. That said, what we're going to do today is mostly talk about expanding things we've touched on before. We're going to go fully through our 16th note timing exercise handout that we started with last time. And we're going to talk about all of the accent patterns on paradiddles. So, one of the things we covered was paradiddles with accents. And as always, this handout will be available as a PDF down below in the doobly-doo. I encourage you to either print it out or download it on your device and either follow along or use it as a reference afterward. I think it's probably helpful to watch these lessons and then work on the material afterward. If you want to play along with me, that's cool too, but I almost think it's better to look at the printout first so you know what we're doing. Okay, so what we did last time was the single paradiddle, and we talked about that pattern as being down, up, tap, tap. The single paradiddle is easy because there's only one accent ever in its basic form. I've said this a few times, everything I ever say to you will have exceptions, and so if I say something like always, what I mean is usually or normally or sometimes almost always, but nothing is always anything, right? So the single paradiddle generally only has one accent on that first note, paradiddle. The double paradiddle and the triple paradiddle both have versions that can either have one accent or multiple accents. And we'll talk about those as we go. And then finally, the paradiddle-diddle also generally only has one accent right at the beginning. So let's jump right into it really quickly, just to review the single paradiddle to give us a jumping off point. We've got down, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap, tap. Right, so we've got that accent on the first note, and then ra-did-dul is quiet. Pa-ra-did-dul, 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 pa-ra. Down, up, tap, tap, 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 down, up, tap, tap. So like I say, we did that one before, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. What I did just there is how I would like you to work on them. Start slow and gradually speed up. And you'll know when you're going too fast because it'll start to sound bad, right? So if you get to the point where either you're tensing too much or it starts to sound really uneven, slow it down just a little bit and then try and keep it there for as long as you can. The way that you will increase your muscular dexterity and control and eventually be able to increase your speed too is by playing for as long as you can at a tempo that is challenging but within your grasp, right? The way I've heard it described is you want to shoot for about 80% of your top speed and then do that for as long as you can. And that's how you'll gradually bump your speed up. It's funny, working on endurance increases your speed because you're strengthening your muscles, and it's kind of interesting to talk about strengthening your finger muscles, but that's what it is. Okay, so double paradiddle. We're going to start with double paradiddle with one accent. So the pattern goes down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap. If you're thinking paradiddle, you can think of the stick comes up on the ra before the last diddle, right? Paradiddle, 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 again, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap. You notice it's almost like a group of three, right? I've got down, and then tap, tap, and then up, tap, tap. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So there's several ways to think about this to get your head inside it. Right, but no matter how you're counting it or thinking about it, you just want to go slow and be really, I can't say this enough, be very strict and specific with the technique. The reason that I can play as fast as I can is because when I work on these, I spend probably half my time working slowly and just exaggerating the motions as much as I can, because that is laying that groundwork, right? That then I'm gonna. Technique is the bedrock, right? Upon which you build your speed. And if you don't have your technique like just rock solid, you have nothing for your speed to stand on. Your speed becomes mush, right? Okay, so. We also talked about counting double paradiddles, double paradiddle. For me here, this is where this method, the paradiddle method of counting really shines, because now we're going to do 2 accents, and we're going to accent every time I say pa. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Okay? We're going to have to use a full stroke to get that. So full, tap, down, up, tap, tap, full, tap, down, up, tap, tap. But if we're saying paradiddle, 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 then we can just think, oh, I'm accenting every time I say pa, right? Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. And for me, that just makes more sense. So that's how I'm going to count them. So we've got paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. So same thing, you want to start slow and gradually build up speed. And, you know, I'm doing shortened versions of these, but you should be playing these for, if you're working on this whole page, sure, a couple minutes each one. But it makes more sense to work on, you know, maybe one day work on the single paradiddle, and the next day the double paradiddle with 1 accent, and the next day the double paradiddle with 2 accents, and so on. So you have a little bit of time to build that repetition and just get used to the pattern, right? One of the reasons we do rudiments is to program these patterns into our brains. But we, you know, when I was a kid, we talked a lot about muscle memory. And it's not so much that your hands have a memory, but it's that your brain learns to do things on autopilot. So you don't have to think about it, right? So, and that's why it almost feels like muscle memory. You can kind of just set your hands to do certain patterns. And that's what we're going for with really all the rudiments, right? We're trying to get so we can do those without thinking about them. Okay, so next, we've got the triple paradiddle with one accent. There's a lot of tap strokes in this one. I've got down, tap, 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 up, tap, tap, right? So pa, ra, diddle. Down, tap, 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 up, tap, tap, down, tap, 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 up, tap, tap. Whew. Para, diddle, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. For me, it's definitely easier to think, oh, I'm doing that upstroke on the last ra before the diddle. Para, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. All those down, tap, up, that feels less organic to me and less musical. It is the pattern, right? So again, just to give you that one more time. It's a downstroke and then 4 tap strokes and then the upstroke and then 2 more tap strokes, right? So down, tap, 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 up, tap, tap, down, tap, 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 up, tap, tap, down, tap, 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 down, tap, 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 up, tap, tap, down, tap, 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 up, tap, tap. But again, that doesn't flow for me as well as para, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Right, so, but it's all about what helps you to connect with the pattern. At the end of the day, it's the pattern, it's not the counting. The counting is a tool to get the pattern, right? Okay, so now the triple paradiddle with 3 accents. And again, here's a place where, for me, it just feels more natural to count para, paradiddle. So now I've got 2 full strokes, full, tap, down, up, tap, tap, full, tap, down, up, tap, tap, full, tap, down, up, tap, tap, full, tap, down, up, tap, tap. Phew. And again, that feels like more of a mouthful for me than para, paradiddle, para, paradiddle, paradiddle, para, paradiddle, para, paradiddle, para, paradiddle, para, So, yeah, definitely let me know in the comments down below if any of these don't make sense. I think they're pretty. I mean, I've been playing them forever, so for me they feel very natural. But with the Paradiddle Variations, oftentimes there are questions from students. So if you have questions, feel free to put them down below. So last for paradiddles, we have the Paradiddle-diddles, right? Paradiddle-diddle, paradiddle-diddle. And the Paradiddle-diddle, right, doesn't change hands. So we have a right-handed version and a left-handed version. And the right-handed version is just paradiddle-diddle. So your upstroke is on the diddle, the dull of the right-handed diddle. Down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap. Right? So paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, diddle, paradiddle, paradiddle, diddle. And like the double paradiddle, it's 6 notes, so we kind of have a group of 3 going on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, paradiddle-diddle, 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 paradiddle-diddle. Okay, and then the same thing with the left hand. Paradiddle-diddle, paradiddle-diddle, down, tap, tap, tap. And then the same thing with the left hand. Paradiddle-diddle, 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 down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap. Down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap. Down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap. Paradiddle-diddle, 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 paradiddle-diddle. Okay, so that's it for this page. We're gonna, again, this page will be down below in a PDF. And like I say, I suggest working on them separately. If you want to do them one after the other, that's cool too. Make sure you're getting enough practice with each one individually. One of the artifacts of our lessons this way is a lot of times I'm giving you a sheet, and it's a sheet that I might take, maybe I would take 1 week with a student, but maybe I would take a month with a student, depending on how quickly they process what's going on. So don't feel like you need to go through this material. Work hard, practice a lot, right? But if it's taking you a while to digest things, try not to get frustrated. Everybody's gonna digest this material at their own pace, and that just is what it is, right? Everyone practicing hard advances at different rates and in different ways. And if you find some things difficult, you might find some things easier than other people, right? So there isn't a, oh, I should be doing this easily, right? We're all in this together, and everybody's going at different speeds. So no worries on that, okay? If it takes you a few weeks before you feel comfortable with all, what do we got? 2, 4, 6, 7 patterns. I count that right? 2, 4, 6, 7. Yes. So if it takes you a few weeks before you feel comfortable with all 7 of these patterns, and when I say comfortable, I've been playing paradiddles for 40 years. Oh my goodness. And I still practice them, right? So, I mean, there's one thing feeling comfortable, and there's another just trying to get further and further inside these patterns and trying to master them. And I'm still trying to master them, right? So when I say comfortable with them, I mean, feel like you have them and you're doing well with them. You'll know, I think. Okay, so that's it for paradiddles for today. Our next subject, we're gonna tackle that 16th note timing exercise. But before we do, remember last week we did the 4/4 section, and we got down to here where it says 3/4, and I said, all right, hold up, let's not even worry about that, because I didn't want to talk about time signatures yet. Now it is time to talk about time signatures. Time signatures it seems like they're unnecessarily confusing. If you remember 2 questions, you will always remember what the top and bottom number of a time signature is. You need to remember how many and what kind. How many is incredibly self-explanatory. So the top number is how many beats or counts per measure. I can pretty much have any number I want in the top. I could have 145 in the top if I wanted. It would be counterproductive because one of the reasons we break music into measures is to make it easy to read, and I don't want to count 144 E and 145 E and right? I mean, that just sounds like torture, right? If there's that's my version of hell, I think. So generally you won't see numbers in the top higher than, every once in a while you'll see it 15 because that bottom number is a 16, and the only way to get 15 counts is 15 over 16, right? Every once in a while you'll see more than 15, but humanity still hasn't exhausted all the musical possibilities of 4/4, so the odd time signatures, it takes a while before they get really, really, really crazy odd, right? So the most common ones you're going to see are changes to the top number, 3/4, 2/4, sometimes 1/4, although 1/4 is almost a cheat, right? 1/4 is almost the same as having no time signature. It's just saying every quarter note gets a beat and every beat is equal to the next. But you can't count 1, 2, 3, 4. You just have to count 1, 1, 1, 1 eana, 1 eana, 1 eana, 1 eana. And at the bottom of the 16th note timing exercise, we are going to do a section that's in 1/4, but that's almost part of the point, right? It's kind of a demonstration of how crazy 1/4 can be, as well as giving us the pattern and we'll talk about why we get to 1/4. Okay, so the top number can be pretty much anything. The bottom number tells you what kind of note gets one beat or count. And this is the one that sometimes trips people up. It doesn't have to be confusing. When we count 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say we're going to have 4 in the top. So the bottom number is a 4. Our primary note that we think of for the beat is the quarter note. Another word for a quarter is a fourth. Okay? So if I took that 4 away and put a 1 on top, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4 note. Okay? So every time I count 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm counting quarter notes. I can put different numbers in the bottom. Usually they will be a typical note value that you've used before. So if I put a 2 in the bottom, that would be, put a 1 over the 2, that would be a half. So half notes get the beat. 4 we already talked about. 8, put a 1 over 8, so the 8th note gets the beat. Or a 16, 1/16, a 16th note gets the beat. It's kind of like shifting gears on a bike or on a car. You're still pedaling the same speed or pressing the same hardness on the gas pedal, but you're slowing down or speeding up because you've changed your gear ratio, basically, okay? So if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's quarter notes, well, if I change it to eighth notes, I can still count 1, 2, 3, 4, and now it's eighth notes. Usually, a time signature with an 8 on the bottom is going to go a little faster than a time signature with a 4 on the bottom. A great example of this is the song The Ocean by Led Zeppelin, which switches between 4/4 and 7/8. And the reason they do that is because they want to chop 1/8 note off of the second measure. It's kind of almost 2 measures of 4/4, but they want to chop an 8th note off the end. So it's almost 4/4 and then 3.5 4, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2, right? So the and after 4 the second time isn't there. 3.5 over 4 is a very modern way to think of a odd time signature. A much more common way is to just do 7 over 8, to say, well, if I want 3.5 quarter notes, I don't really have a thing that is 0.5 quarter note. Oh wait, I do, it's called an eighth note. So let's change the bottom number, the counts, to eighth notes, and now I have 3.5, 4, just expressed as 7, 8, right? So the ocean is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To sing the bass line really badly, you get like da 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 dum da 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 dum da da dum dum da dum 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 da da dum right? I can't sing the melody and count at the same time, but hopefully you see how that works. So changing the bottom number really just has a relation to do with how the time signature relates to other time signatures. It doesn't necessarily say anything about how fast the notes are going. Okay? If we had 2 over 2, so there's 2 beats per measure, and the note that gets the beat is the half note. A lot of times that's just it feels like a quick version of 4. It's felt in 2, right? But instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you count 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Time signatures will make sense as you play with them a bit. I wanted to give you this and talk about them a little bit just to plant the seed in your mind. They can feel overwhelming at first. They're really not confusing, I promise. Playing with them will help them to make sense. And we're going to do a bit of that right now with this 16th note timing exercise. I'll have a PDF of that in the doobly-doo as well, just in case you want to see that written out. So then the 16th note timing exercise, this definitely, right? PDF down below. So what we did last week was these sections down to here, the 3, 4. 3, 4, it's the same patterns, right? 4 16th notes per beat, then 3, then 2, and then 1. But now I'm counting to 3 instead of 4. And then, where are we? And then I've got 2, 4, 1 eana, 2 eana, 1 eana, 2 eana. And then the last 2 lines are 1, 4. And this is specifically to demonstrate these patterns in a 1, 4 kind of, they're coming at you quickly. It's about changing the pattern quickly. I could have easily written them in 4, 4 or 3, 4 or 2, 4 to make it a little bit more normal seeming, but kind of the point is seeing each rhythm isolated as one beat, okay? So I'm going to play through it really slowly without a metronome first, the whole thing, and then we'll do it at a couple different tempos with the metronome so you can see how that works. One thing I should mention about the metronome is, since we're going to be changing time signatures, usually with the metronome I'll have an accent the first beat of a group of 4. Ba, do, 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 ba, do, do, do. I can't, right, because, I mean, I could, but that'll just be confusing. So the metronome is going to just click steady beats. Click, 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 and we'll count around it, okay? So here, first, without the metronome, nice and slow. 1 E and a 2 E and a from the top. 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E, and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and 2 E and 1 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 E and 2 1 E and 2 E and 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 1 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 1 E and 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 1. So down towards the bottom with the 2/4 and the 1/4, it really starts to get a little, the changes start to get crazy, right? And so it's important that you have these patterns before you try to play the whole thing. I'm going to play with the metronome now. I'm probably going to go in and out of counting because it's a lot of counting. We're going to start at 70 beats per minute. Which is a little faster than we just were, but not too much faster. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and 4 E and 1 E a 2 E a 3 E a 4 E a 1 and a 2 and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 3 E 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 a 4 E and a 1 2 3 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E 3 E and a 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E a 2 E a 3 E a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 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 E and a 1 E 2 E 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 2 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 1 E and 1 E a 1 and a 1 E 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 and a 1. Okay, so let's try it at 100 and see how that goes. 1, 2, 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Phew. Okay, let's be really daring and try this at 120. And I'm probably not going to be able to count too much at this tempo, the 16th notes, but we'll see what happens. 1, 2, 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 Okay, I'm going to try and play it at that tempo without the metronome, so you can see how towards the bottom it gets really tough to follow if you're not keeping track of where the beat is. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that section with 1/4 just gets loony. It's a really good idea to do something physically to kind of keep time. It's nice to practice being perfectly stoic and being able to keep time completely internally. That is a great skill to work on. Just for real world practicality, I have found that it is also helpful if you have some other physical kind of move that's granting you some connection to the time that you're trying to play. For me, I don't know if you've noticed at all, I tend to grind my teeth basically. And for 16th notes, I just go back and forth with my teeth, chicka 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 chicka, right? Chicka 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 chicka. I bet I don't think I can really show you on camera, but take my word for it, right? That I'm in my head, and literally in my head, because in my mouth, I'm physically moving chicka 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 chicka. Some people tap their foot, some people, bob their head. I do that too. Like I said, there's something to be said for, being able to be perfectly still and keep perfect time. And, I did that a lot as a kid in drum corps. But for me, like I said on one of the drum set lessons, drumming especially is about motion and movement. And I really feel bad saying, oh, you should stay perfectly still and be able to play these notes. And yes, if you're marching in a drum line or something and you have to be uniform, yep, you want to be as still as you can. But if you're just playing, if you're playing and making music, I care about how the music sounds. I don't care what you look like, kind of, right? I don't care if you're, there's that video, which you all must have seen. If you haven't seen, Google "this drummer's at the wrong gig." And, he's playing the ZZ Top tune, Sharp Dressed Man, right? And he's just laying it down. But he's also doing all these crazy, stick twirls. And I mean, it's hilarious and beautiful, right? But if I close my eyes, the most important thing is how he sounds. And it sounds great too, right? But then he's also doing all this showy, flashy stuff along with it. And there isn't a right way of this. If you're playing for yourself, if you're learning how to drum, if you're playing with your band and they don't care, for the most part, people care how music sounds. I mean, it's music, right? So it sounds. So don't worry too much if you're, doing some move to connect you to the time. It's good if you can do it without that and you don't want to rely on that physical tick, okay? But, when you get in those, especially down in the 1/4 section, when it's like 1 E and a 1 E and, in the 1/4 section where it's 1 E and a 1 E and 1 E, a 1 and a 1 E 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 and a 1. Right, if I'm not doing something to subdivide those 16th notes physically, it's really easy to drift off, right? And like with everything, I'm still working on it. That's a work in progress, right? Even for me. So don't be afraid of having some physical tick that grounds you to the time, with the goal of maybe eliminating it, or at least being able to eliminate it, right? Again, for me, when I watch other drummers, if they're perfectly stone still, I find that very distracting. I want to see drummers breathe. I want to see their bodies dance with their drumming. And if that's not happening, I just find it almost bizarre, right? Okay. So that's it for this week. We only did 2 things, but they're kind of a little deeper. Take some time counting the 16th note, timing exercise, and paying attention to the different time signatures, and use that as practice for thinking about different time signatures. In the not too distant future, I think we'll do something with an 8 on the bottom, and then the time signature confusion can ratchet up a little. So if you've been working with 3/4 and 2/4 and 1/4 and you're comfortable with those, then we get to 7/8 or 5/8 or whatever, it's going to seem like no big thing. Okay, so that's going to wrap us for today. I will see you all on Friday for the drum set. We're going to do these paradiddle accent patterns on the drum set, moving them around, which is super cool, right? And we're going to talk about 8th note patterns with the bass drum while doing 1/4 note patterns with the right hand. So we're going to start to work on some right foot independence too. And that's going to lead us, it's kind of one step before then getting into 16th note patterns with our bass drum, which is when things get really exciting. Okay, so I will see you Friday for that. Please remember to like this video. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the little notification icon to get notified of new videos. I realized something I've been forgetting to mention to y'all is I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. Both of those are Penny Larson Drums, and it would be great to connect with you there as well as here. And yeah, all right, so I will see you all Friday. Practice. Let me know in the questions if you have any questions. If you have questions, please include a timestamp if there's something specific you're asking about. I've gotten a couple questions and I haven't fully understood the question, and being able to refer to the part of the video where the question is referring to would be super helpful. Okay, so I'll see you all on Friday. I love you guys. Bye.